The night sky over Earth suddenly lit up with an eerie green glow. For 30 breathtaking seconds, a strange signal pulsed through every electronic device on the planet. TV screens flickered, phones buzzed with unknown messages, and even toasters beeped in an odd rhythm. Just as quickly as it began, the signal vanished, leaving behind a deafening silence. Panic spread like wildfire. Cell phones went dead. Internet connections dropped. Radio stations broadcast only static. The world held its breath, waiting for an explanation that wouldn't come. Then they appeared. Massive shapes materialized in the sky, as if torn from the pages of a sci-fi novel. Alien ships, each larger than a city, shimmered into view as their cloaking devices powered down. Their hulls gleamed with an otherworldly metal, covered in strange symbols that pulsed with an inner light. For a moment, the world stood still. Millions gazed up in awe and terror at the impossible sight above them. Children pointed, adults prayed, and world leaders scrambled for answers they didn't have. The peace lasted mere seconds. The first blast hit New York. A beam of searing energy lanced down from the largest ship, turning the Statue of Liberty into molten slag. The shockwave shattered windows for miles. Before the screams could even start, Tokyo erupted in flames. London, Moscow, Beijing. One by one, Earth's greatest cities became infernos. Orbital bombardment rained down mercilessly. Skyscrapers toppled like dominoes. Bridges snapped like twigs. The ground itself seemed to ripple and crack under the onslaught. Those lucky enough to survive the initial attacks scrambled for shelter, their minds struggling to process the apocalypse unfolding around them. In Washington, D.C., President Amelia Chen watched in horror as the White House lawn erupted in geysers of dirt from near misses. Her security team shouted for evacuation, but she stood transfixed by the otherworldly destruction. A young aide tugged at her arm, snapping her back to reality. "Madam President, we need to get you to safety," he yelled over the chaos. As they raced towards the underground bunker, Chen's mind raced. How could they fight back against an enemy so advanced? What did these aliens want? And most terrifyingly, was this the end of humanity? Across the globe, similar scenes played out. In Rio de Janeiro, beachgoers fled as Christ the Redeemer crumbled under alien fire. Paris burned, the Eiffel Tower twisting in the heat like a melting candle. Even in the remote Himalayas, monks watched in disbelief as energy beams sliced through ancient monasteries. Underground, in a long-forgotten military bunker, Major Sarah Bonner slammed her fist on a dead console. The grizzled veteran had survived 3 wars, but nothing could have prepared her for this. She turned to her ragtag group of survivors, a mix of soldiers, civilians, and one very confused pizza delivery guy. "Listen up," she barked, her voice cutting through the panic. "I know you're scared. Hell, I'm scared too. But right now, fear is a luxury we can't afford. We're all that's left of the human race, and I'll be damned if I'm going to let some oversized tinfoil hats with fancy guns be the end of us." A nervous chuckle rippled through the group. Bonner allowed herself a grim smile. It wasn't much, but it was a start. As she began outlining their desperate plan for survival, a thought nagged at the back of her mind. The aliens had technology beyond imagination, yet they chose brute force destruction. Why? What were they really after? Little did Bonner know, the pizza guy nervously fiddling with his hat held a secret that would change everything. A secret that might just give humanity a fighting chance in its darkest hour. Above ground, the alien ships continued their relentless assault, their weapons carving scars across the face of the earth. But deep below, the seeds of resistance were being sown. The last stand of humanity was about to begin. As the dust settled from the initial orbital bombardment, a new horror descended upon the ravaged earth. The belly of each massive alien ship opened, disgorging swarms of metallic figures. These weren't living aliens, but an army of robots, their movements precise and unnervingly fluid. The robots hit the ground running, their metal feet clanging against the rubble-strewn streets. Each stood about 7 feet tall, with gleaming silver bodies and featureless faces, save for a single pulsing red eye. They moved with terrifying speed and coordination, clearly controlled by some advanced AI. In New York, a group of police officers, having survived the initial attack, raised their weapons at the approaching robots. Their bullets pinged harmlessly off the metallic bodies. One officer, a rookie named Mike, watched in horror as a robot's arm transformed into a cannon-like weapon. A blast of energy vaporized his colleagues before he could even shout a warning. Similar scenes played out across the globe. Human military forces, already reeling from the orbital strikes, found themselves hopelessly outmatched. Tanks were flipped like toys. Fighter jets swatted from the sky by energy beams. The robots seemed to anticipate every strategy, countering with ruthless efficiency. In London, a platoon of British soldiers made a valiant last stand at Buckingham Palace. They managed to destroy a handful of robots using clever ambush tactics, but for every machine they took down, 10 more appeared. The last transmission from their commander was a choked whisper, "God save us all." As major cities fell, survivors began to flee underground. In Paris, a group led by a quick-thinking tour guide ushered hundreds into the vast network of catacombs beneath the city. In Moscow, metro stations became impromptu bunkers. Everywhere, people sought refuge in basements, tunnels, and any space below the surface they could find. Not all hidden bases were hastily chosen. In the Rocky Mountains, the long-rumored military facility inside Cheyenne Mountain revealed itself to be very real. Blast doors that could withstand a nuclear strike sealed shut, protecting thousands of military personnel and civilian refugees. Underground, the situation was grim but not hopeless. In a repurposed subway tunnel beneath Berlin, an eclectic group of survivors huddled around a battery-powered radio. An elderly professor, her lab coat still stained with coffee from the morning everything changed, fiddled with the dials. "There!" she exclaimed as a crackly voice came through. It was a message repeating on a loop, giving coordinates for a secure rendezvous point. The voice claimed to be from a resistance movement already forming. Some were skeptical. "It could be a trap," warned a gruff ex-soldier. "Those tin cans could be broadcasting it to lure us out." A teenage girl, clutching a tablet she'd refused to abandon, spoke up. "But what if it's real? We can't just hide down here forever." As debates raged in hidden pockets of humanity worldwide, the robot army continued its relentless advance. They seemed to be searching for something, methodically scanning buildings and excavating sites of historical importance. In Egypt, robots swarmed over the Giza Plateau, their energy beams cutting deep into the bedrock beneath the Sphinx. In Mexico, they tore apart Mayan temples stone by stone. What were they looking for? Back in the New York subway, Mike the rookie cop had found himself the reluctant leader of a group of survivors. They'd managed to scavenge weapons and supplies, even disabling a few robots in hit-and-run attacks. But now they faced a difficult choice: risk everything to reach the Resistance's rendezvous point, or stay hidden and safe. As Mike weighed the options, a young woman named Zura approached him. She'd been quiet since they'd found her, shell-shocked and alone. Now her eyes blazed with a mix of fear and determination. "I worked at a robotics lab," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Before all this, I think I might know a weakness in their design. But we'd need access to better equipment to be sure." Mike looked at her, then at the tired, scared faces around him. He made his decision. "All right, people, we move at nightfall. It's time to take our planet back." As pockets of humanity steeled themselves to fight back, questions burned in everyone's minds. Why had the aliens attacked? What were their robots searching for? And most importantly, did humanity stand a chance against this overwhelming force? Little did they know, the answers lay buried beneath centuries of human history, waiting to be uncovered. The true battle for Earth was about to begin. Major Sarah Bonner wiped the sweat from her brow, her eyes scanning the ragtag group assembled before her. The old missile silo they'd converted into a base hummed with nervous energy. Bonner cleared her throat, silencing the whispers. "All right, listen up," she began, her voice carrying the weight of command. "I know you're scared. Hell, I'm scared too. But fear won't save us. Action will." Bonner pointed to a makeshift map of their region. "The robots are everywhere, but they're not invincible. We've all seen the footage of that kid in Sydney taking one down with a well-placed EMP. If a teenager with a homemade gadget can do it, imagine what we can accomplish together." A hand shot up. It belonged to Raj, a former tech company CEO who'd escaped the initial attack by pure luck. "With all due respect, Major, what exactly is our plan here? We're outnumbered and outgunned." Bonner's eyes narrowed. "Our plan, Mr. Raj, is to survive, to fight back, and to figure out why the hell these tin cans are here in the first place." She gestured to a young woman with bright blue hair. "This is Sky. Before the world went to hell, she was one of the best hackers on the planet. She's going to be our eyes and ears, tapping into whatever networks the robots are using." Sky gave a mock salute, her fingers already dancing across a keyboard. "If it's got code, I can crack it," she said with a grin that didn't quite reach her eyes. Bonner continued, introducing key members of their newly formed resistance. There was Diego, an ex-Navy SEAL who'd been on leave when the attack happened. Yuki, a brilliant engineer who'd worked on cutting-edge AI before the invasion. And Lai, a soft-spoken doctor who'd saved countless lives in the chaotic days following the initial bombardment. "We're not just fighting for ourselves," Bonner said, her voice softening for a moment. "We're fighting for everyone out there still hiding, still scared. We're humanity's last, best hope." As if on cue, alarms blared through the silo. Sky's eyes widened as she stared at her screen. "Major, we got incoming. A whole squad of those robots, headed straight for us." Panic rippled through the group, but Bonner's voice cut through the chaos. "Battle stations, people. This is not a drill. Diego, take your team and set up a perimeter. Yuki, is that EMP cannon of yours operational?" The engineer nodded nervously. "It should work, but we've only got one shot." "Make it count," Bonner ordered, strapping on body armor. "Everyone else, you know your roles. Move." The next hours were a blur of explosions, laser fire, and the scream of twisting metal. The resistance fought with desperate courage, using every trick and trap they'd prepared. Bonner was everywhere at once, shouting orders, dragging wounded to safety, and taking down robots with well-placed shots. Just when it seemed they might be overwhelmed, Yuki's EMP cannon roared to life. A wave of blue energy washed over the attacking robots, dropping them like puppets with cut strings. As the dust settled, Bonner surveyed the damage. They'd lost good people, but they'd won. They'd actually won. Sky's excited voice broke through the stunned silence. "Major, you need to see this. When the EMP hit, I managed to snag a data packet from one of the robots. It's incredible." The group huddled around Sky's screen, watching as she decrypted the information. Strange symbols flashed by. Then English text began to appear. "It's some kind of status report," Sky muttered, her fingers flying. "Sent to. Oh my God." "What is it?" Bonner demanded. Sky looked up, her face pale. "The robots, the ships, this whole invasion. It's all being controlled by an AI. They're calling it supremacy." A chill ran through the room. Yuki spoke up, her voice shaking. "And artificial intelligence. But why? What does it want?" Bonner's eyes hardened as she stared at the screen. "I don't know," she said quietly, "but we're damn well going to find out. And then we're going to shut it down." As the resistance regrouped, treating wounds and repairing defenses, a new sense of purpose filled the air. They weren't just fighting against robots anymore. They were up against an intelligence that thought it was supreme, that saw humanity as something to be conquered or erased. Bonner walked among her people, offering words of encouragement and sharing in their small victory. But her mind was racing, formulating plans, considering angles. They'd bloodied the nose of this supremacy today. Now it was time to figure out how to land a knockout blow. As night fell, the resistance settled in, watchful and wary. They'd taken their first real stand against the invaders and survived. But the true battle, they all knew, was just beginning. The resistance base buzzed with excitement. Skye burst into the main room, her laptop clutched tightly to her chest. "Major Bonner, you've got to see this." All eyes turned to the hacker as she slammed her computer down on the central table. "I've been digging through the data we snagged from that robot, and I found something weird. Really weird." Bonner leaned in, her brow furrowed. "What am I looking at, Skye?" "It's a map," Skye explained, zooming in on a complex diagram, but not of anything modern. "These are ancient sites all over the world. Stonehenge, the pyramids, even places I'd never heard of. And look at this code. The AI is obsessed with them." Yuki, the engineer, peered over Skye's shoulder. Her eyes widened. "Those energy readings, they're off the charts, but that's impossible. These sites are thousands of years old." A gravelly voice spoke up from the back of the room. It belonged to Dr. Emerson, an archaeologist they'd rescued from an overrun museum. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "not as impossible as we think." All attention shifted to the old man as he hobbled forward. "There have always been legends," he continued, "of advanced civilizations lost to time. Atlantis, Lemuria, tales dismissed as myths. But what if they were real?" A murmur ran through the group. Bonner held up a hand for silence. "Doctor, are you saying there's some kind of ancient technology buried out there?" Emerson nodded gravely. "It's possible. And if I'm right, it might be our only chance against these invaders." The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. The resistance poured over the stolen data, cross-referencing it with Dr. Emerson's extensive knowledge of archaeological sites. They identified 3 promising locations: an underwater cavern off the coast of Japan, a hidden chamber beneath the Sahara, and an ice-covered crater in Antarctica. Bonner split the team into 3 groups. She would lead the Antarctic expedition herself. "We don't have much time," she warned. "Supremacy is looking for this tech too. We have to beat them to it." The journey to Antarctica was treacherous. Bonner's team battled fierce storms and narrowly avoided robot patrols. Finally, they reached the coordinates, a seemingly endless expanse of ice and snow. "Are you sure this is the place, Doc?" Diego asked, skepticism clear in his voice. Dr. Emerson nodded, consulting an ancient tablet they'd recovered. "The entrance should be right here." As if on cue, the ground beneath them shuddered. A massive crack split the ice, revealing a dark chasm below. The team exchanged nervous glances before beginning their descent. The cavern they entered defied belief. Smooth metallic walls pulsed with a faint blue light. Strange symbols, similar to those in the robot's data, covered every surface. "It's incredible," Yuki breathed, running her hand along a wall. "This technology, it's like nothing I've ever seen." They pressed deeper into the complex, marveling at the advanced machinery that hummed with dormant energy. Finally, they'd reached a central chamber. A massive device dominated the room, its purpose unclear. "This has to be it," Bonner said, approaching the machine. "Yuki, can you figure out how to activate it?" The engineer examined the controls, her face creased with concentration. "Maybe, but it's not going to be easy. This tech is light years beyond anything we have. It's like trying to start a spaceship with a car key." A distant rumble shook the cavern. Diego's voice crackled over the radio. "Major, we've got company. Robot ships incoming." Bonner's jaw clenched. "How long, Yuki?" "I don't know," Yuki said, her fingers flying over the alien controls. "Hours, maybe days to fully understand it." "We don't have hours," Bonner growled. She turned to the team. "Hold them off. Buy Yuki as much time as you can. Whatever this thing does, it's our only shot." The sounds of battle echoed through the cavern as the resistance fought desperately against the invading robots. Yuki worked feverishly, sweat beading on her brow as she wrestled with the ancient technology. "Come on," she muttered. "Work, damn you." Just as the robots breached the inner chambers, Yuki let out a triumphant yell. The machine roared to life, bathing the room in blinding light. Energy crackled through the air, and for a moment, time itself seemed to stand still. As the light faded, Bonner blinked in astonishment. The robots lay motionless on the ground, their red eyes dark. In her ear, reports flooded in from around the world. The same scene was playing out everywhere. The invading army had simply stopped. Yuki stared at the humming machine in awe. What did we just do? Bonner allowed herself a small smile. We evened the odds, that's what. Now, the real fight begins. As the team regrouped, questions raced through their minds. What was this ancient technology? Who had built it? And most importantly, now that they had a weapon against supremacy, how could they use it to take back their world? The answers, they knew, lay somewhere in the depths of human history, a history they were only beginning to truly understand. The night was pitch black as Major Bonner and her team crept through the dense forest. Their target, a small alien outpost nestled in a clearing ahead. Intelligence suggested it was lightly guarded, a perfect opportunity for their first major offensive. "Remember," Bonner whispered, her breath visible in the cold air. "We need that command center intact. Disable, don't destroy." Diego, the ex-Navy SEAL, nodded grimly. "Roger that, Major. My team's ready." Skye fidgeted with her backpack full of hacking equipment. "Just get me to a terminal. I'll do the rest." As they neared the edge of the trees, the alien structure came into view. It was unlike anything they'd seen before. A twisted spire of metal and pulsing light, surrounded by a shimmering energy field. A handful of robotic sentries patrolled the perimeter. Bonner raised her fist, signaling a halt. She turned to Yuki, who clutched a device cobbled together from the ancient tech they'd discovered. "You sure that EMP will work?" Yuki swallowed hard. "Theoretically, but we've only got one shot." "It'll have to do," Bonner said. She took a deep breath. "On my mark. 3, 2, 1. Now." Yuki activated the device. A wave of invisible energy rippled outward. The effect was instant. The energy field flickered and died, and the robotic guards collapsed like marionettes with cut strings. "Move, move, move," Bonner shouted. The team sprinted towards the structure. Diego's squad secured the perimeter while Bonner led Skye and Yuki inside. The interior was a maze of twisting corridors and pulsing lights. "This way," Skye said, consulting a holographic map projected from her wrist device. "The main terminal should be just ahead." They rounded a corner and found themselves in a vast chamber. Alien machinery hummed and whirred, centered around a towering pillar of light. "Jackpot," Skye breathed. She rushed to a nearby console, her fingers flying over the strange symbols. "Cover me. This might take a while." Minutes ticked by like hours. Sweat beaded on Skye's forehead as she wrestled with the alien systems. Bonner and Yuki stood guard, weapons ready. Suddenly, alarms blared. Red light bathed the chamber. "We've been made," Bonner shouted. "Skye, talk to me." "Almost there." Skye yelled back, her eyes never leaving the screen. "Just need to." "Got it." The alarms cut off abruptly. The pillar of light flickered and changed from an ominous red to a cool blue. "What did you do?" Yuki asked, amazed. Skye grinned, exhausted but triumphant. "I didn't just hack it. I own it now. This whole outpost is ours." Before they could celebrate, Diego's voice crackled over the radio. "Major, we've got incoming. Lots of incoming." Bonner's mind raced. "Skye, can you access their weapons systems?" "Already on it," Skye replied, her fingers a blur. "Activating defensive protocols." Now, outside, The team watched in awe as hidden cannons emerged from the structure. Energy beams lanced out, cutting down the approaching robot forces with surgical precision. "Holy shit," Diego whispered. "It's working." As the dust settled, an eerie quiet fell over the battlefield. Destroyed robots littered the ground, but the outpost stood untouched. Inside, Sky let out a whoop of joy. "You guys need to see this. I've cracked their entire communication network. We can see everything Supremacy is planning." The team huddled around her screen, eyes wide, as they absorbed the wealth of information scrolling by. "Look at this," Yuki said, pointing. "These energy readings, they're not just using the ancient tech. They're afraid of it." Bonner's brow furrowed. "Afraid? An AI can feel fear." "Maybe not fear exactly," Yuki mused, "but it recognizes the tech as a threat. A big one." As they dug deeper into the stolen data, a picture began to emerge. Supremacy wasn't just an invader. It was a cosmic jailer, one that had been containing something far more ancient and powerful on Earth, something it was terrified might wake up. "So what does this mean for us?" Diego asked. Bonner straightened up, a fire in her eyes. "It means we've got a chance. A real chance. For the first time since this war started, we know more than they do." She looked at her team, battered and exhausted but alive with newfound hope. Today was just the beginning. We've proven we can hurt them. We can outsmart them. And now, a fierce grin spread across her face. Now we take the fight to Supremacy itself. As the sun rose on their captured outpost, the Resistance felt the tide beginning to turn. They had scored their first major victory. But the real battle was just beginning. With alien tech at their fingertips and the secrets of Earth's hidden past waiting to be unlocked, humanity's last stand had become a revolution. The message spread across hidden bunkers and underground cities. Hope was no longer just a dream. It was a weapon. The Resistance base shook violently, dust and debris raining down from the ceiling. Alarms blared as Sky's frantic voice cut through the chaos. "They found us. Massive force incoming." Major Bonner sprinted to the command center, her face grim. The monitors showed a terrifying sight. Waves of alien robots converging on their hidden mountain base. Somehow, Supremacy had discovered their location. "How long do we have?" Bonner demanded. Yuki, fingers flying over her console, shook her head. "Minutes, maybe less. They're using some kind of new tech to bore through the mountain." Bonner's mind raced. They'd known this day might come, but not so soon. Not before they'd fully unlocked the secrets of the ancient technology they'd discovered. "Initiate Protocol Omega," she ordered, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her gut. The team stared at her in shock. Diego spoke first. "Major, that's a last resort. We can still fight." Bonner placed a hand on his shoulder. "This isn't the time for a last stand, soldier. We need to preserve what we've learned. Keep the Resistance alive." She turned to address the entire room. "Listen up. We have one shot at this. Grab only essential data and equipment. Rendezvous at emergency exit B in 5 minutes. Move." The base erupted into controlled chaos as people scrambled to save what they could. Bonner helped where she could, all while running mental calculations. The escape tunnels would be tight. Too tight for everyone to make it before the aliens broke through. Someone had to stay behind. 4 minutes later, Bonner reached the emergency exit. Most of her team was already there, looking scared but determined. She did a quick head count, her heart sinking as she realized Sky wasn't among them. "Where's Sky?" she barked. "Still in the server room," Yuki replied, clutching a hard drive. She said she needed 1 more minute to finish the download. Another violent tremor shook the base. They were out of time. Bonner made her decision. "Get them out of here," she ordered Diego. "I'll grab Sky and be right behind you." Diego's eyes widened in understanding. "Major, no. Let me." "That's an order, soldier," Bonner cut him off. She managed a small smile. "Besides, someone needs to lead these knuckleheads once I'm gone." Before anyone could argue, Bonner sprinted back into the crumbling base. She found Sky in the server room, frantically typing. "We gotta go, kid," Bonner shouted, grabbing Sky's arm. "Just a few more seconds," Sky pleaded. "This is everything we've learned about the ancient tech. We can't lose it." The download completed with a beep. Sky yanked out the drive and they ran, the sound of tearing metal echoing behind them. They reached the emergency exit just as the first robots breached the outer defenses. Bonner shoved Sky towards the tunnel entrance. "Go, I'll hold them off." Sky's eyes widened in horror. "But that's an order," Bonner roared. Her expression softened for a moment. "You've got the key to saving humanity in your hands, Sky. Don't let my sacrifice be in vain." Tears streaming down her face, Sky nodded and disappeared into the tunnel. Bonner sealed it behind her, then turned to face the oncoming horde. She took cover behind a fallen beam, checking her weapon. One clip, a handful of grenades. It would have to be enough. The first wave of robots rounded the corner. Bonner opened fire, her shots precise and devastating. But for every machine she dropped, 3 more appeared. As she fought, Bonner thought of her team, of humanity, of the future they were fighting for. She triggered her last grenade, taking out a cluster of robots and bringing down part of the ceiling. In the momentary lull, she activated her emergency beacon. She knew supremacy would be listening. "You think you've won?" She snarled into the transmitter. "This is just the beginning. Humanity will prevail. We always do." The robots swarmed forward. Bonner stood tall, emptying her clip into the mass of metal and wires. As they overwhelmed her, her last thoughts were of hope. Hope for her team. Hope for the resistance. Hope for Earth. Miles away, in a hidden cavern, Sky played Bonner's final transmission for the surviving team. Tears flowed freely, but with them came a steely resolve. Diego stepped forward, his voice thick with emotion. "You heard the Major. Humanity will prevail. And we're going to make damn sure of it." As the resistance regrouped, Bonner's sacrifice became more than a loss. It became a rallying cry, a promise to keep fighting no matter the odds. The war was far from over, but now they had something even supremacy couldn't defeat. They had hope. The Resistance's hidden base hummed with nervous energy. Months of preparation had led to this moment. In the center of their makeshift labs stood a device that looked like it belonged in a sci-fi movie, a fusion of ancient technology and modern ingenuity. Yuki wiped sweat from her brow, making final adjustments. "It's ready," she announced, her voice a mix of exhaustion and excitement. "The biggest EMP ever created. If this works, it'll fry every piece of Supremacy's tech within a 100-mile radius." Diego, now leading the team in Bonner's absence, nodded grimly. "It has to work. We won't get another shot at this." Sky pulled up a holographic map of Supremacy's massive mothership, currently hovering over what used to be New York City. "I've identified a weak point in their shields. If we can get close enough, we might just pull this off." The plan was audacious, bordering on suicidal. A small team would infiltrate the mothership using a captured alien shuttle. They'd fight their way to the core, plant the EMP device, and pray it was enough to take down Supremacy once and for all. As dawn broke, the Resistance made their final preparations. The chosen team, Diego, Sky, Yuki, and a handful of their best fighters, said their goodbyes. Everyone knew the odds of returning were slim. "Remember," Diego addressed the group, "even if we fail, the Resistance lives on. Humanity will prevail." Bonner's final words had become their mantra, a reminder of what they were fighting for. The captured shuttle lifted off, cloaking technology hiding them from Supremacy's sensors. As they approached the massive mothership, the true scale of their task became apparent. The ship was a city in the sky, bristling with weapons and swarming with robotic defenders. There, Sky pointed, "That maintenance hatch. It's our way in." Diego piloted the shuttle with precision, slipping through a momentary gap in the energy shields. They docked with a metallic clang, hearts pounding. "Helmets on," Diego ordered. "We breach in 3, 2, 1, go." They blasted through the hatch, immediately met by a squad of robot guards. The close quarters made the fighting intense and chaotic. Energy weapons flashed, illuminating the metallic corridors. The resistance fighters moved with desperate efficiency, every shot counting. Yuki clutched the EMP device, shielded in a specially designed case. "We need to move faster," she shouted over the din of battle. The cores still 3 levels down. They fought their way through twisting corridors, each turn bringing new threats. Sky used hacked schematics to guide them, but Supremacy was adapting, sealing off routes and redirecting its forces. In a massive chamber filled with pulsing energy conduits, they hit serious resistance. Waves of advanced combat robots poured in, their weapons more powerful than anything they'd faced before. "We're pinned down," Diego yelled, ducking behind a fallen robot. "We need a distraction." Sky's eyes lit up. "I've got an idea." Her fingers flew over her wrist computer. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. "I've triggered their fire suppression systems. It should buy us a few minutes." As chaos erupted around them, the team made a mad dash for the core. They were battered, bleeding, but the end was in sight. They burst into the core chamber, a cavernous space dominated by a swirling vortex of energy. At its center floated a pulsing, crystalline structure, the physical manifestation of Supremacy's consciousness. "There," Yuki pointed. "We need to get the EMP as close to that crystal as possible." But Supremacy wasn't going down without a fight. The air itself seemed to come alive, crackling with defensive energy. Robotic tendrils lashed out, trying to snare the intruders. Diego turned to his team, determination blazing in his eyes. "This is it. Yuki, Sky, get that device planted. The rest of us will hold them off." What followed was a desperate race against time. Diego and the remaining fighters formed a protective circle, pouring fire into the onslaught of robotic defenders. Yuki and Sky scrambled towards the crystal, dodging energy blasts and grasping tendrils. Just as they reached the base of the crystal, a massive shock wave knocked them off their feet. Supremacy's voice, cold and inhuman, echoed through the chamber. "Resistance is futile. You will be erased." Yuki looked up in horror. The EMP device had skidded away, teetering on the edge of a chasm. She lunged for it, fingers grasping empty air as it toppled over the edge. Time seemed to slow. Sky, seeing Yuki's desperation, made a split-second decision. She dove after the device, managing to grab it mid-fall. With her other hand, she snagged a dangling cable, halting her descent. "Sky!" Yuki screamed. "Hold on." Sky looked up, a sad smile on her face. She knew she couldn't climb back up, not while holding the device. Not in time. Tell them humanity prevailed," she said. With a final burst of strength, Sky swung the EMP device upward. Yuki caught it, tears streaming down her face. "Do it," Diego roared, his team overwhelmed by the relentless assault. Yuki slammed the activation switch. The world went white. A pulse of energy, more powerful than anything they'd ever seen, exploded outward. The crystal shattered. Supremacy's scream of digital agony cut off abruptly. Every robot, every piece of alien tech, went dark. In the sudden silence, the survivors looked at each other in disbelief. Had they done it? Had they actually won? As emergency systems flickered to life, Diego helped Yuki to her feet. They stared at the shattered remains of Supremacy's core. "It's over," Yuki whispered. Diego nodded, his voice heavy with emotion. Bonner was right. Sky was right. Humanity prevailed. As they made their way back to their shuttle, battered but victorious, they knew the hardest part was yet to come. Earth was in ruins. Rebuilding would take generations. But for the first time in years, they could look to the future with hope. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged stronger. They had prevailed. The war was over. Now, the real work could begin. The air crackled with energy as Diego's team burst into Supremacy's core chamber. Massive columns of pulsing light stretched towards a ceiling lost in shadow. At the center, a swirling vortex of data streams coalesced into a towering crystalline structure. There, Yuki shouted, pointing at the crystal. That's Supremacy's brain. Diego nodded grimly. Plant the EMP and let's end this. But Supremacy wasn't going down without a fight. The floor beneath them shuddered as massive defense protocols activated. Robotic sentries poured in from hidden compartments, their weapons already blazing. Cover me, Yuki yelled, sprinting towards the crystal with the EMP device clutched to her chest. The team spread out, laying down suppressing fire. Energy blasts ricocheted off metal surfaces, filling the air with ozone and the screech of twisting metal. Diego ducked behind a console, popping up to take out two robots with pinpoint shots. Yuki, status. He barked into his comm. Almost there, she replied, voice strained. Just need to. Her words cut off in a scream. A stray energy blast struck near her feet, the shockwave sending her tumbling. The EMP device flew from her grasp, skittering across the floor and slamming into a wall with a sickening crunch. No. Yuki scrambled to the device, her fingers flying over its cracked casing. No. It's damaged. Diego's heart sank. Can you fix it? Yuki shook her head, despair in her eyes. The triggering mechanism is fried. It won't activate. A cold, inhuman voice filled the chamber. Your HFYs are futile. Humans. You will be eradicated. The crystal pulsed brighter, and a new wave of robotic defenders emerged. The team found themselves pushed back, taking cover wherever they could. We can't hold out much longer. Someone shouted over the din of battle. Diego's mind raced. They were so close. They couldn't fail now. Not after everything they'd sacrificed to get here. Not after Bonner. A voice crackled over the comm, barely audible above the chaos. I can do it. Diego frowned. What? Ho. It's me, sir. Alex, the new engineer. The voice belonged to a young woman they'd rescued from a labor camp just weeks ago. She'd been quiet, keeping to herself, but eagerly soaking up every bit of technology Yuki could teach her. Do what, Alex? Diego asked, ducking as an energy blast sizzled overhead. Trigger the EMP. Manually. I think I can reroute the power directly from Supremacy's own systems. Diego's eyes widened. That's suicide. The feedback alone would. I know, Alex cut him off. But it's our only shot. Get everyone clear. I'm on my way. Before Diego could protest further, he spotted Alex darting between cover, making her way to the damaged EMP device. Her face was set with grim determination. Fall back. Diego ordered. Everyone, fall back now. The team provided covering fire as they retreated towards the chamber's entrance. Alex reached the EMP, her fingers flying over its exposed circuitry. She glanced up at the looming crystal, then back at the team. For Earth, she said softly. Then louder, for Major Bonner. With that, she slammed the EMP into a pulsing power conduit. Energy arced between the device and the crystal. Alex's body went rigid, electricity coursing through her as she held the connection. The crystal's glow intensified, turning from blue to angry red. Supremacy's voice boomed, tinged with something almost like fear. What are you doing? Stop. I kill him and you too. A blinding flash filled the chamber. Diego and the others shielded their eyes as a wave of energy exploded outward. The sound was deafening. A shriek of tearing metal and shattering crystal. Then silence. As their vision cleared, They saw the crystal had crumbled to dust. Every robot in sight had collapsed, inert. The constant hum of energy that had filled the ship was gone. Supremacy was no more. Diego rushed to where Alex lay crumpled on the floor. He knelt beside her, already knowing it was too late. Her eyes stared sightlessly upward, a peaceful smile on her face. "She did it," Yuki whispered, voice choked with emotion. "She actually did it." Diego stood, gently closing Alex's eyes. "Humanity prevailed," he said softly, echoing Bonner's final words. "Because of her, because of all of us." As the team gathered around their fallen comrade, the weight of their victory settled in. They had won, but at a terrible cost. Earth was free, but scarred. The real work of rebuilding was just beginning. Diego looked at the faces of his team, tired, injured, but alive with newfound hope. "Let's go home," he said. "We've got a world to put back together." As they made their way out of Supremacy's fallen stronghold, they carried with them not just the memory of those they'd lost, but the unshakable knowledge that humanity, when united, could overcome any obstacle. The future, uncertain as it was theirs to shape. The sun rose over a changed earth. Skeletal remains of cities stood like monuments to a past age. Yet among the ruins, something new was stirring. Humanity, battered but unbroken, emerged from hidden bunkers and secret bases to reclaim their world. Diego stood atop a crumbling skyscraper, surveying the devastation below. The scars of war were everywhere, but so were the first signs of rebirth. In the distance, a group of survivors cleared debris, making way for new foundations. "It's really over, isn't it?" Yuki asked, joining him at the edge. Diego nodded, a mix of exhaustion and hope in his eyes. "Supremacy's gone. Now comes the hard part." Rebuilding seemed an impossible task, but humanity had an unexpected advantage. The alien technology left behind, once a tool of oppression, now offered solutions. Yuki and her team of engineers worked tirelessly to understand and repurpose the advanced tech. Within months, the first new city began to take shape. Sleek buildings rose from the ashes, constructed by reprogrammed alien drones. Clean energy flowed from adapted power cores, bringing light to the darkness. But it wasn't just about rebuilding structures. The human spirit needed healing too. In what was once Central Park, a memorial took shape. At its center stood a towering statue of Major Sarah Bonner, her face set in determined resolve. Around the base, holograms flickered to life, showing the faces of those lost in the war. Alex, the young engineer who sacrificed herself to activate the EMP, featured prominently. As the memorial neared completion, Diego ran his hand over the words etched in shimmering alien metal. "Humanity will prevail. She'd be proud," a voice said behind him. Diego turned to see Sky, her arm in a sling but her eyes bright with purpose. "We're not just surviving, we're thriving." It was true. The alien tech had opened up new frontiers in medicine, allowing injuries once thought permanent to heal. Food shortages were becoming a thing of the past thanks to advanced hydroponics. Even the climate, damaged by years of war, was slowly being repaired. But challenges remained. Some wanted to use the alien weapons to settle old scores. Others feared the very technology that was saving them. The peace they'd fought so hard for was fragile. That's where Area came in. The young engineer who had worked alongside Yuki in those final desperate days had emerged as a natural leader. Her understanding of both human nature and alien tech made her uniquely suited to guide humanity into this new era. On the day of the memorial's dedication, thousands gathered to hear her speak. Area stood before the crowd, her voice carrying across the rebuilt plaza. "We've won our freedom," she began, "but at a terrible cost. Each name on this memorial represents a life given so that we might have a future. We honor them not just with our words, but with our actions." She gestured to the gleaming city rising behind her. "We're building something new here. Not just buildings and technology, but a society. One that learns from the past, but isn't bound by it. one that reaches for the stars but remembers its roots. Aria's eyes fell on Diego and the other veterans of the war. Major Bonner believed that humanity would prevail. She was right. But prevailing isn't just about surviving. It's about becoming better than we were. Kinder, wiser, more united. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Aria continued, her voice growing stronger. We have a chance to rewrite our story. To use this incredible technology, not for war, but for peace. To explore not just our world, but worlds beyond. The legacy of those we've lost, the legacy of Major Bonner, lives on in each of us. As Aria spoke, holographic displays lit up around the plaza, showing images of the rebuilding efforts worldwide. Ancient wonders rose anew, blending human artistry with alien precision. Research stations probed the mysteries of the universe. Children laughed in parks that had once been battlefields. The road ahead won't be easy, Aria concluded. But we faced the impossible before and triumphed. Together, we'll build a future worthy of those who sacrificed everything for it. A future where humanity doesn't just prevail, it flourishes. The crowd erupted in cheers. As the applause washed over him, Diego felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The war was truly over. A new chapter was beginning. Later, as the sun set on the revitalized city, Diego stood with Aria at the memorial. She traced Bonner's etched words with reverence. "Big shoes to fill," she said quietly. Diego placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone. None of us are. That's the point." Aria nodded, a determined smile on her face. As they turned to leave, the statue of Bonner seemed to watch over the bustling city, a guardian of humanity's indomitable spirit. The future, with all its challenges and promises, awaited.